Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Amma ba'da, habati fillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As'al Allah kareem rabbil arshil azim an yatawallana fi dunya wal akhirah. Habati fillah, a question was asked. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope this reaches you in good health and iman. I have a question, and if you have the time, and if you'd be happy to respond, then I'd be glad to learn. But if not, no worries. I heard this definition of minor shirk by the ulama. Taking as a means something which Allah did not make as a means is minor shirk. Does this definition mean that when people commit bid'ah, the act is a form of minor shirk if their intentions are to get closer to Allah because they're using non-Shari'a means as a means? For example, celebrating the Mawlid, thinking there's a reward with Allah, but they're using a non-Islamic means as a means to attain the reward. Is this a right or wrong understanding of the subject? Sorry if the question is stupid or not appropriate. I just wanted a good understanding. First and foremost, it's a very complex question, and I want to ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward the questioner for actually seeking ilm. Because this is a very ilmi question. This is not a basic question. This has nothing to do with stupidity. It's, in fact, a very knowledge-based question, which is an illustration of fiqh fi din. Well, talab al-fiqh. It's an illustration of fiqh fi din, understanding, meaning the questioner has a base and has a strong base. And they are making a talab. They're requesting to further their knowledge and their insight into this mas'ala. So it's very, very ilmi. So may Allah bless us and the questioner and all of those who are listening. So, ahabati fillah, this, as I said, there is some complexity to the question. But one of the things we have to remember, and the scholars, there's a qaida, a principle, and we're going to do a whole video about this principle, so that way you have more tools in your toolbox that are called qawaid, principles. And it is la mushaha bil istilah, or something similar to this, which means basically that when we have definitions of many issues in the deen, if they are not directly, Allah wa Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam defined it, then you're going to find a lot of you're going to find many differences. And even Ahlus Sunnah, and even the Salaf al-Salih, ridwanullahi alayhim, when it comes to ta'rifat, defining things, there may be differences. And we talked about this before, that sometimes differences are gradations of the same thing. We call that ikhtilaf tanawwu'. And sometimes differences are ikhtilaf tadad, which means they contradict one another. For example, our aqidah to the Ash'ari's aqidah, our aqidah to the Maturidiya's aqidah, our aqidah to the various Sufi sects in their aqidah. Predominantly, especially in contemporary time, our aqidah to the Shi'a's aqidah. They're in contradiction. You can't curse the Sahaba and at the same time you are the one who exalt and love the Sahaba to Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam radiyallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in and say what the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, La tasubba ashabi, do not curse my companions. But yet other people build their whole religion, the Rafid, the Shia and others, on it's predicated. And a usul from them is to curse the Sahaba, takfeer Sahaba, saying evil and wicked about the Sahaba to Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam radiyallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in. So Hassan Nasruddin or Nasrullah and all these other mulhideen were kuffar, murtaddeen. I don't care if they fought the Yahud and you thought this was great and you thought that was great. Don't be emotionally attached by the deen. So when we mention differences of the ulama, and we're talking about the ulama of sunnah, not the ulama of bid'ah and other things, but when we have these differences in definitions, terminologies, as I said, often you'll find in many sciences, especially if it comes to aqidah and things like this, you'll find what would be known as ikhtilaf tadad when it comes to defining something. And minor shirk is one of those terminologies. It's one of those terminologies because what we have, for example, we have nusus from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam mentioned, he said, أخوف ما خاف عليكم الشرك الأصغر وسئل عنه فقال الرياء. So in a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, an authentic hadith, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam actually used the term shirk al-asghar. Shirk al-asghar, the minor shirk. So that means it's a Shari'a based term, and it wasn't something even that the scholars had to make ijtihad. It is a Shari'a based term, shirk al-asghar, meaning the minor shirk. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was asked about it, he said, the thing I'm most fearful for my ummah is the minor shirk. And then he was asked about it, and he said, ar-riya, showing off. And that, we have some nusus like this, which mention what shirk al-asghar is. And the Prophet ﷺ gave us this understanding by not by definition, but rather by example. Because he was asked about shirk al-asghar, he used the terminology, but he didn't give it a ta'rif, an explicit definition. Rather, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave us an example of it. He said, ar-riya. فَسُئِلَ عَنْهُ ar-riya. فَقَالَ ar-riya. So that lets us know that showing off is just one type of shirk al-asghar. So from that, the scholars make ijtihad and try to determine some dawabit, some criterion from the Quran and the Sunnah to understand what denotes shirk al-asghar from other types of actions of ibadah or statements and what have you. So shirk al-asghar, this is one of the best ta'rifat that I've come across that I hold to, because this was such an excellent question. It required me to go and get back into the books and get back and get for a more specific, because I was more under the impression prior of certain definitions that I've used, which are still, they're sound, but they are not all encompassing. They're not all encompassing as definitions, meaning that there are some shortcomings. So, for example, the questioner gave the example of the Mawlid. So, if that would, by the very definition that she is operating by, taking a means to something which Allah did make as a means is minor shirk, it shows us that in that definition, it is not all-inclusive, because then that would mean any kind of bid'ah that you are seeking to come closer to Allah is shirk, but that's not true. So that's why it's important to know that definitions are not always all-encompassing, and there's no problem that the scholars have different gradations, and some scholars have more precision than others. Some scholars' definitions will also be more precise than others. So that's what's very important. So this definition, so to get to the questioner, that this issue of, for example, the Mawlid and so forth, no, there is some nuqs in that, because that would, just because there's going to be gradations of people who celebrate the Mawlid. There's going to be those who celebrate it, they think it's from the deen, they've fallen into a bid'ah. Okay, maybe it's from taqleed. This is what their family and their tribe and their village has always practiced. They don't know, and they just think they're honoring the Prophet. They fell into a bid'ah. Then there are those who propagate that. And there are some who have a strong i'tiqad with that. So it's going to have gradations of people's deviation, and as far as the hukum, on the particular individual in accordance with their i'tiqad, in accordance with their creed. So ala kulli hal, if we were to just operate blanket openly just by that definition as you mentioned, then that would mean everything, you're using some dhikr beads, okay, instead of using your fingers. Shirk. No. You're using, I start to believe that, the kufiya, some extreme Sufi sheikh told me that it's that I should use this color. I have to use this color. And that color is going to make me closer to Allah. And, and they start making up stuff. I'm giving an example. And then so I start to practice that with that aqidah. Then this is also, this is a bid'ah, but if I, anyway, it can tajawuz. It can go from there. So the point is, not every bid'ah is kufr, and not every bid'ah has to do with shirk. Okay, so it could be bid'ah in mu'amalat, in actions, and it could be bid'ah in your aqidah. And even if it's bid'ah in your aqidah, that doesn't mean it's shirk. So that's very, very important. And there's a lot of examples. We're not going to get too far off the topic, but so in light of that, we have to know that the definition that was given, and again, it was in English, and also there were some shortcomings in the way that it was mentioned. There were some words left out. I don't know if you translated it or what, but anyway, the point is that does not denote shirk, and this is one of the more encompassing definitions that I've come across, because it's a beautiful ta'rif and definition which combines some other scholars of Ahlul Sunnah's definition. It's a combination, and it has more of a, it's more inclusive. It's a more inclusive definition. Shirk al-asghar huwa kullu ma warada fi shar' tasmiyatuhu shirkan mimma huwa dhari'a wa wasila ila shirk al-akbar. That is a beautiful, precise definition. So, for the first part, shirk al-asghar, the minor shirk, is everything which is mentioned in the Shari'a, meaning the Quran and the Sunnah, and that has been called, meaning the Quran and the Sunnah have named it as shirk. So first it has to be considered shirk. So that's why I said the dhikr beads, there's no shirk in there. So not every bid'ah is shirk. Not every shirk is, or not every bid'ah is shirk. And not every shirk, not every act of polytheism takes you out of the fold of Islam. And bid'ah itself is of different types. So not every bid'ah obviously take you out of the fold of Islam. There's lots of bid'ah, which we say, that's why we say bid'ah is of two types, bid'ah mukaffara or bid'ah ghayra mukaffara. Bid'ah which takes you out of the fold of Islam, and bid'ah which does not take you out of the fold of Islam. Like we said, if you believed in there is bid'ah which takes you out of the fold of Islam. If you believe the dead in the graves can, grant you your du'as, and they can hurt you, and they can bless you, and stuff like that, and they're dead, they couldn't even help themselves, then this is your aqidah, and this is bid'ah mukaffara. Now it has gone to kufr. So in relation to the question, I think, inshallah ta'ala, we answered that, bi'idhnillah ta'ala, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the Almighty to accept our good and forgive our evil. And if you need further clarifications, you can send another question. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.